Well, hello everybody. This is Dr. Wes Moore, and I want to welcome you to another lecture on economics. And in this lecture, we want to talk about labor, loans, and entrepreneurs. Labor, loans, and entrepreneurs, elements that drive economic activity. And these are sort of the behind the scenes elements that cause the economy to keep producing and keep moving forward. Labor, loans, and entrepreneurs. So let's get started. What do we want to talk about in this session? Number one, we want to talk about what we do with our time and why we choose to work. Secondly, we want to talk about why everybody doesn't get paid the same amount, a question that comes up a lot today. Third, we want to understand loans and interest rates. And then finally, we want to talk about what entrepreneurs do and why they are important. So let's begin then with what do we do with our time and why we choose to work. If you think about it for a moment, there really are three things that you can do with your time. The first thing you can do is market work. You can sell your time to employers, and when you get a job, that's really what you're doing. You have to understand that you are selling your labor to an employer. And then you could also do non-market work. You could do work at your house. So you've got to do the laundry, you've got to cut the grass. You know, I need to do some drywall this weekend on a wall that's got some holes in it. And then you could choose to do that with your time. And then you could just choose leisure, chilling and grilling, just relax. You know, go for a ride. I go for a drive in my convertible, listen to my radio. You know, you can go skating or go to the movies or just sit around and play on your phone. You know, you can choose to do any of those three things with your time. And what you choose to do is going to be based on their utility. Remember utility, what you get out of it. And then what that is based on your need. So depending on your stage of life, you may need to work a lot. You know, you don't have a lot of time to do leisure or stuff at home. So your house becomes a mess because you're working two jobs, because you have to. That's your need. As you get a little bit older, like I'm getting to the point where my children are almost all out of college, and I'm not going to need to work as much in the future. So I'm thinking about things I'd like to do outside of work. And then, you know, leisure. If you don't have time for leisure, then you don't leisure. But when you get older and make more money, whatever, you can choose to have more leisure. So the question is, why work? Why do people work? Other than just the money. The money's for granted. Everybody's going to get paid. We know that. But other than money, why do people choose to work or not to work? Well, it depends, number one, on their non-work income. Remember, we talked about needs. So if you need money and you don't have a lot of money saved up, you don't have a lot of money from your family, you don't have an inheritance sitting around, you can't loaf off your parents, you are forced to work. So well, my decision to work is partly based on, well, what other money do I have? And then non-monetary factors. Things like, how hard is the job? Do I want to do that job? Do I want to sit in an office all day? Do I want to work at a plant? Do I want to be known as a plant worker? Do I want to be known as a white-collar worker? What's the work environment like? What are the people like? Is the job going to make me look good to other people or not? Non-monetary factors determine whether I work and where I work. Another factor that could cause you to work or not work is the value of the work experience. If you know, when I was an adjunct professor, I was a part-time professor, I was trying to get into teaching, I would take part-time jobs anywhere I could take them. You know, I would take the school that's the farthest out and with the least amount of money, because I needed the work experience to add to my resume. And so a lot of times our choice to work is, hey, I'm trying to build up to something else, so I'm going to work in a less than ideal job so I can get where I want to get in the future. And then finally, the taste for work. The taste for work. In other words, do you want a job? Do you want to do that job? Are you lazy? This is an incredible problem in our culture today. People are becoming more and more lazy. When we talk about non-work income, one of the things we should have talked about is unemployment benefits or government assistance. So non-work income, if you can get on welfare, or if you can get on unemployment, you can get your phone paid for, your insurance paid for, all if you're not working. And if the government has no requirements that you work, all you have to do is not be working, then why work? And a lot of people don't have the integrity today to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to work. I have respect for myself and I want control over my future. So let me make this point. Lazy people, people who could work but choose not to, do not deserve government assistance. They do not deserve taxpayer assistance. And I'm sure you do not want to give your hard-earned money to people who are just laying around working the system. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who is on government assistance is lazy. I'm not saying that. But we all know that many are, and there is an incentive now for people to become even more lazy because the government wants to give out free money to people who won't do anything. This is not moral. It is not good financial sense. And it will burn us, is burning us now in terms of our debt and our productivity as a nation. So why doesn't everybody get paid the same amount? Why do doctors make more than janitors? Why do professors generally make more than mechanics? That kind of thing. Today, everybody wants more money. Everybody wants more money. Everybody thinks they're paid too little. But we're in a free market where there are many buyers, remember, many employers who are buyers of labor. So how could someone get to the point where they are not being paid what they're worth? Why do we get paid different amounts? Let's look at this. Let's look at some reasons that people get paid different. Now, I want to say this up front. The amount you make in terms of labor, the amount that people are willing to pay you for your labor, does not specify your value as a human being. What you make, if you make $10 an hour at your job, that doesn't mean you're not worth anything as a human being. It simply means that what you bring to the table in terms of what you can do for that company is only worth $10 an hour. All right? You have to separate those two things. But why do people make different pay levels? Training, education, age, and experience. Some people just know more. They've been trained more. They've invested in education. You know, it takes, for the most part, to become a professor at a four-year college, you have to have a doctorate degree, which is called a terminal degree. And so I've spent the last 6 years getting my master's and my doctorate, and have probably spent $50,000. So I am qualified now to do something that you, if you just have a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, are not qualified to do. You don't have the education and the training, you see. So I make more. Professors are going to make more with a doctorate than they do with a master's or whatever. So that's just an example of why. It's not because I'm a better person or more valuable as a human being. It's simply because I have better training. In terms of age and experience, let's think about this. Most business owners would not hire a 20-year-old to manage a $10 million business. They don't have the life or the business experience to be qualified for that role. It's not because the business owner doesn't like young people. It's because that would not be a good decision, you see. So just because someone considers your age and your experience, it doesn't mean it's any kind of discrimination. It can just be a good business decision. Skill and ability. Doctors have more skill and ability than professors. So they should make more. That's only right. A risk of loss. Some jobs are riskier. I remember when I was in the military, we would have temporary duty assignments over to Saudi Arabia right after the first Gulf War. And they would pay us extra money to be in a combat zone because it's a riskier thing for us to go do that. Some jobs pay more. Lineman for power companies, that's a riskier job. It's going to pay more. But working as a clerk at a convenience store, it's not a ton of risk in that. You see that? So riskier jobs are going to pay more because there's more possibility that they could lose something, their health or their life even. Okay? And then geography. Different areas pay different wages. In South Carolina, you're going to have a lower overall wage rate than New York. But that doesn't mean that there's discrimination going on in South Carolina or something like that. It simply means that these different markets demand different pay levels. So keep that in mind. Now, let me say this. Let me make a pronouncement here on this subject. It is not fair nor moral to pay everyone the same, or to punish high earners with excessive taxes. It is not fair to pay a doctor the same as you pay a janitor. I don't care what you think. It's not fair. That person has greater skill, ability, training, experience, all of those things. And that person is worth more. We don't want to get into a situation where we're trying to pull the doctor's pay down by taxing him and then taking all that money and giving it to the janitor because of the rule of incentives. Remember the law of incentives. And countries who reduce the pay of doctors end up with shortages of doctors. Because why would I do all of that? All that education, all that cost to get paid less than I should otherwise. Doing so is the height of inequity. People are talking about inequality. Well, this is the top of the list of inequality. If you do all that work and earn all those degrees and get all that skill, and you cannot get paid what you have earned, that is inequity. That is not fair. That is wrong. The answer to higher pay is to increase your training, increase your education, increase your experience, your skill, your ability to take a job that's riskier, to work in a geography where you can make more as an individual. You must take personal responsibility for your wages and your earning power. Personal responsibility is the key to success in a free market. Do not place your fate in the hands of a government bureaucrat, waiting for him to raise the bottom wage so that you can make a little bit more, or for him to increase your welfare benefits, again, which is just at the poverty level. This is only going to lead you to failure and to poverty. Personal responsibility. Take it. You don't have to worry about any of these other things if you do that. Let's talk about loans and interest rates here for a moment. Loans and interest rates. Again, we're talking about this from a business standpoint, not necessarily from a consumer standpoint. But the value in loans. Money allows you to get what you need to create the value you want to create. You may have the greatest idea for a new product that's going to bring so much value to the market. But if you can't get the resources, the money together to buy the equipment or to build the website or whatever, hire an employee, you can't get it off the ground. So loans are very important to economic activity because it provides the money people can then exchange for the resources they need to create the value that we all want. So loans are very valuable. Loanable funds, let's look at a couple of terms now. Loanable funds is the savings people and organizations provide to banks that is then loaned out at interest. We'll define interest in a moment. So when banks loan money, what they're doing is they're taking the money that we put in the bank, our savings, or because if it's there, we're not spending it, and then they're taking that and they're loaning to other people and earning interest. And then when we come in and we want our money, they give us back what is ours. That's how a bank works. And so savings becomes the basis for loans. That's what a loanable funds is, how much savings there is available for the banks to loan out. Now the interest rate is the money charged to borrow money. It's the cost of the money. So if you go in and you buy a car and you pay $10,000, well gosh, nobody pays $10,000 for a car, $30,000 for a car. The $30,000 is what you paid to get the car, the use of the car. Okay? Well, if you go in and borrow $1 million, and let's say the interest rate is 10%, that's $100,000. That $100,000 is what you paid to get that million. Right? Of course, you have to pay the $1 million back, but that's what it costs you. You don't get the interest back. That goes to the bank, who is loaning the money and taking the risk. So why then do interest rates differ? Why is it that, I'll give you an example. My oldest son bought his first car about a year ago, and he went in to get the loan, and he needed me to co-sign for him because the interest rate was going to be so high. I think it was 20 or 21% for him. So I co-signed the loan, and because I have good credit, he didn't have bad credit, he just didn't have any. He didn't have very much. When I co-signed, the rate came down to 15%. All right, so it went from 21 to 15 with him and me together. Later the next year, I bought a car for one of my other children, and I was the only one on the loan, and it was 8%. So we have 21, 15, and 8. Why the different rates? Now, I know that's a consumer example, but it applies still to businesses. Let's look at 3 reasons. Number 1 is the risk. What is the chance that you're not going to repay the loan? So in my son's example, he had only been working for 4 or 5 months, and he didn't have any credit history. So they looked at him and they went, he's a high risk. We have to charge him a high interest rate because more people like him are going to default, and we're going to have to cover that cost with this interest. So they need more interest. But when I was into the situation, because I have a long history of credit and income, the combined, my son and I were a lower risk, but because he was still on there, it was still a higher risk. But when it was just me, there's almost no risk, so the rate went down to almost the lowest that it would go. You see that? That's risk. So a credit card is very risky, because a credit card, all they have as a promise of pay is what you said. I'll pay you back. But there's no collateral. There's nothing for them to go back and get if you don't repay. That's what collateral is. Collateral is what you can put up. So when you buy a car, the car itself is collateral. So if you don't pay the loan, they will come get the car and sell the car and try and repay some of the cost of the loan. You see, that's collateral. When you buy a house, your home is the collateral. But with a credit card, there is no collateral. If you just stop making the payments, they have nothing to go after. So when risk is high, interest rates are high. When risk is low, they're low. The duration of the loan. This is really a risk factor, but it's not a risk for you. It's just a risk of everyone. The longer the loan goes on, the less the bank knows about what's going to happen in the future. So they may issue an 8% loan, but they didn't realize that COVID was coming and that rates were going to go up to, I don't know, let's say 13%. See, so they have to price in what could happen in the future depending on how long the loan is. So longer loans generally have higher rates. And then the administrative cost. What is it going to cost me to produce the paperwork for this loan, to collect the payments for this loan, all of that stuff. Smaller loans still have higher cost per dollar loaned because they're smaller. So I still have to do some of the same stuff with a small loan that I do with a big loan. So usually the administrative cost for a small loan is higher, so the rates for a small loan are going to be higher than if you were to borrow more money. Okay? Now let's wrap up here. What entrepreneurs do and why they are important. Look at a definition of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who comes up with an idea, turns that idea into a marketable product, accepts the risk or failure, the risk of success or failure, and then claims any resulting profit or loss. That all of those are part of the definition of an entrepreneur. They come up with an idea, they turn it into a marketable product, they take the risk. If they're going to lose, they take the risk that they're going to lose everything they put in, or they take the risk that they're going to do really well. They could do well. And then they get the profit or the loss. And this is important because in our society today, people look at wealthy business owners, who are most of them are entrepreneurs, as making more money than they deserve. Jeff Bezos, for example, has made a tremendous amount of money from Amazon. But it's important to look at these last two elements. Bezos accepted the risk of failing. He got a $250,000 loan from his parents. He left a very good paying job. I believe it was on Wall Street. He gave everything he had, put everything on the line. He could have lost it all and had to go right back to square one and repay the loans that he got from his earnings. I mean, it could have been a disaster, but it wasn't. And therefore, he gets to take all the profit. If it pays off big, he gets it because he deserves it. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve to take his money and put it in your pocket. He earned it. Therefore, he gets the profit. Okay? And if you want to earn what he earns, you must do what he does. Trying to take what he has by urging the government to tax it away and give all of his profits to you or someone else who hasn't earned it is immoral and wrong. It is the height of inequity. So, if you see somebody risking it and they make it big, you need to tip your hat to them and leave them alone. Don't try and take what they have because you weren't willing to do what they were willing to do. So how do the entrepreneurs drive the economy? It's the last thing we'll talk about here. They develop new products. Think Google. Think Google. It was two entrepreneurs who just got started with an idea and they put it out there. Totally new idea. Totally new, or at least revolutionary product. They improve existing products. Think the iPhone. There were Blackberries and other phone devices that were used, flip phones and whatnot, before the iPhone. The iPhone, an entrepreneur creates an idea to improve something that exists. Develop new production and business methods. Think Henry Ford. You may or may not know Henry Ford. Henry Ford created the assembly line to make the automobile. And so not only did he create a new product, but he created an entire new way of doing it. This assembly line type model, or he really took it and took it to another level. That's an entrepreneur. And out there taking risks and coming up with ideas. And providing jobs. About 46% of private sector employees, it's in the millions, are employed by small companies, under 100 employees, according to the Small Business Administration. 46% of all private sector employees are working for a company that's 100 employees or less. So they're very important to our economy. So I encourage you, if you want to be an entrepreneur, become an entrepreneur. Go out there and take that risk and seek that reward. And also, if you're not an entrepreneur, support them. Resist unnecessary government rules that make it hard for them to do business, taxes that take away the incentive for them to take the risk, and oversight where the government is just always on them, always auditing them, always watching them. We don't want that. We want them to be free so they can bring the value that we all enjoy. So that's the end of this lecture. I hope that you have enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you again soon. Good day.